presenting Channeling Erik's Hour of Enlightenment.
I'm having technical difficulties with Blog Talk Radio as per usual. I don't know what's going on, but anyway, that's okay because we're gonna have a good show. Of course, we have Michelle Gray here.
Yes.
Of course, we're going to. Yes, and Erik's going to talk about signs, numbers, symbols, and synchronicity. Erik talks about speaking the language of the universe. So awesome. And, of course, Michelle Gray is thehealing-art.com if you want to book a session with her or a healing with her. So, anyway, Erik, hi, I love you.
He says, hi, Mom, I love you. He says, when you said signs, symbols, numbers, and synchronicity, he goes, lions, tigers, and bears, oh, my.
I know. I was thinking the same thing, man. It's funny. Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
He's saying, hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. He's blowing everybody a kiss. He's like, thanks for coming out tonight. Hi.
All right. So what you got for us, big guy?
Well, he says, he's like, okay, the reason why he wanted to talk about this, and he says, now listen up, guys, because he says a lot of people are asking for, like, you know, what's my purpose and how do I know and what if I miss this and how do I know what's next, and I feel like I'm not moving anywhere, I feel like I'm stuck, I'm not doing anything. And he says, and the other thing is he says, right now is the most important time to go within ourselves. And he says, you know, yeah, we have help. He goes, of course, like all of us that work with Erik and so many other people that work in the spiritual industry, he says, you know, we're all here to help, but we want to help you learn how to do this for yourself, because that's what we're all doing. We're all going within ourselves so that we have this meter within ourselves, this universal language within ourselves for our own guidance, and then we go out and we co-create with each other. So he says why this came up tonight is he wants to give everybody just kind of a little peek into how we are into the universe, and really how absolutely everything he says is a message from the universe. He says if you are willing to open yourself up, and he says, and that's the question, how much will you allow? How much will you believe? Because if you're willing to open yourself up and look, he says, you'll find that you're being spoken to with everything. And really, he says, this is where we find a sense of peace. He says, guys, think about how much is really out of our control. He goes, there's only so much we can control in our own lives. And he says the big thing that we hear over and over is surrender, surrender. Well, he says where a lot of peeps have problems is where we're like, but that surrender is so challenging because, you know, it causes a lot of anxiety when we don't know what's going on the outside or what's next. But he says when we start to realize that the universe reaches up to meet us and shows us what's going on at all times, when we're willing to look, when we're willing to accept, even if we don't always know what it is that's coming. It's the sense of peace that we're given to know that we're connected, and he says we're connected through our subconscious, and it's a fabric. He says we are all part of this fabric. We can't be disconnected from it. There's no possible way to be disconnected from it. So he says once we start to realize, and he goes, and this is law of attraction, guys, when you start to realize something, when you start to look at it, you start to see it, the bigger that it gets. So he says it speaks to us in all kinds of ways. He says there's many ways that we can hear, that we can see, but he says what's said a lot and what he hears people saying is how to be able to get information for ourselves. Because he says sometimes as intuitive, it's easier to pick up information for other people. And he goes, and for those of you that are channeling and, you know, we can really look at somebody else and pick up on what's going on around them, but what about ourselves? he goes, some people believe, well, I can't do it for myself. I can't get information for myself. And he goes, that's not true. That's a belief system. That's not true. He goes, of course you can get information for yourself. But how do you do that? He says, well, first of all, from the day you were incarnated onto this earth, the universe has been giving you signs. He says, if you remember back to when you were a child, think about what it was like to receive a sign. He says, did you recognize them? He says, because often children are more open to this, and we may not call it, he says, at that time, we may not say it's a synchronicity or it's a sign. But he says, but we understand intuitively when we're being shown the way. He says we have this internal compass within us.
Well, can you give an example of a sign a young child would typically receive?
Well, he says one good one is like the internal compass, where if a child is walking home and say walking home from school, and he says sometimes children will freely follow something like, which direction am I going to go? He goes, children play games. Which direction am I going to go? I'm going to go, when I see the next red car, go left.
Oh, yeah.
And he says, and then we start to go left. He goes, children tend to play with the universe. And they're not necessarily thinking that they're playing, but they know subconsciously that there's something else out there that's playing with them. Or hey, like a bunch of kids together, he says, hey, okay, the next time somebody says this word, this is what we're going to do. And he says, and so it's playing with the universe. It's having this game within the universe. He says, and same with synchronicity. You know, when somebody shows up, when you meet a friend and you're at, for some reason he's showing me like a fair, when you're thinking about somebody and you know, it's destined, like I'm really thinking about this girl, I really want to meet her, and boom, she's there. It's destiny, it's synchronicity. And we may not think about it that way, but he says these are all these things that we understand now, or that we can tune into now with more purpose. He says with an idea of where we're going.
Yeah, I mean, we get that all the time where you think of somebody and they call 5 minutes later. Or I think about a patient and, you know, I think about a patient and then all of a sudden I get a call that they're in the hospital, you know, things like that. So that's pretty cool.
He goes, why is that? He goes, Mom, do you know why that is? He goes, that's because we're all connected into this internal computer system.
Fabric. Right.
Yeah, it's the fabric. That's right.
Yeah, we're all part of the same fabric. And the universe, I guess, has our best interest at heart. So I didn't know the universe was playful. That's pretty cool.
He says very playful. He goes, you ever heard how some people will say, the universe has a sense of humor? He goes, well, of course. Yeah. Of course. He goes, because it's intelligent. It's intelligent information. It's intelligent energy. And he goes, and, you know, when we say universe, we can break this down into anything. If you want to call it your angels, your guides, your loved ones, if you want to call it God, source, he says you can name it anything that you want. But there are, he says, now you will get signs. So say you're looking for a sign from a specific loved one. He goes, and so there may be signs that are more specific to that energy, to that frequency. And he goes, and that all plays part into universal energy. But what he's more talking about today is he's talking about how the universe will speak to you to be able to help you go along your path. And he says, so when you're not asking, it's still showing you. So even though you may not have been asking all along, those answers are still being shown to you. And why do they show up? They show up to get your attention. And so the more you pay attention to it, he says it's going to expand that vibration. So the more you're going to see it. He goes, you know, he goes, if you go out and you buy a red car, and he must be on the red car. Somebody must have a new red car. Yeah. He says if you buy a red car and it's a certain type of car that you've never seen before, and then all of a sudden you drive this car home and you see them everywhere. They're everywhere. Or you wear a shirt that you really like. You've never seen it on anybody before, and everywhere you go, somebody else is wearing that shirt. He says, that's how this happens. He goes, that vibration starts to expand, and the more you pay attention to it, the more you see it, the more it shows up. So he also says that Well, the synchronicity, like signs, numbers, he says they're all a way for us to validate in the external what's going on in the internal. So he says, so how can you make this purposeful? He says, create, because everything's a pattern. He says everything's got patterns. So you want to start to pay attention to the patterns that are existing right now. So he says questions. Look for validations. Ask questions. Ask your guides. Ask the universe, what direction am I going? So is this the right choice for me? Can you show me a sign that this is the right choice?
Uh-oh. Something's wrong with my okay. Keep talking. I might have to log off and get back in. The same thing happened yesterday. It's just awful. Restore.
Oh, man.
It's okay.
It
might work. Okay, here. I think I have it. All right. Yeah, I got it. It's good. Whew.
But, it's interesting because something that Erik, we were sitting down here for a couple minutes before the show started, and something that Erik showed me, because I was asking him some questions about it, and he said to me, he says, well, look back at your own experience, Michelle. He says, how did you walk your own and how do you continue to walk your own experience?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's right. That's right. I did it all through synchronicity and validation and using what was happening in my environment, in my universe. So he's showing me right now that I was having dreams. So I was having meditations. I'd see words, or I'd have dreams and I'd pick up on different symbols. And something he shared with me early along is he says, keep writing them down. Draw pictures, keep writing it down. And so I would keep these art books full of all of the different signs and symbols. And it didn't matter what happened in a day, I would write it down. And then I started to recognize a pattern. I started to notice that things would validate, and I'd start to see, certain things would keep popping up to show me when I was closer. And what started to happen was the more validation I would get, I would start to feel intuitively that something was about to happen. Something was about to change, whether that be an opportunity or something I was really wanting to do. And so I'd not only be witnessing these signs and synchronicities and symbols and numbers that were happening all around me, but I was feeling them too. And so he says, add things into it. He goes, pull yourself some cards. He says, interact with the universe, interact in every way, because he says there is no limited amount to how we can be spoken to. And he says, and this also, he goes, hint, hint, this is how you manifest. He says, when you start to get into this playfulness, and he says this increases joy, which increases faith, because as you see that there's something there that's greater than you that you're part of, that you start to have more fun with it, you have more faith in it, you realize that you're not alone. He goes, it really helps create peace. And then you start to discover more about yourself. And he goes, and this is the organic process that healing also takes place in, because we start to recognize all of these patterns in our life. And so we start to recognize when things are coming up to be released for healing. He goes, nothing is separate. It's all together. Everything, this whole fabric is all together. Mm-hmm. It is amazing.
It's very hard to manifest if your energetic vibration is super low. So the whole playing with the universe and feeling connected and, feeling like you're not alone, that's such an important part of the equation of manifestation. Now, the universe, I've got a big, long divine team, and the universe is one of them. Source, the universe, the founders, the events, blah, blah, blah. So what is the universe kind of a form of consciousness? Can you tell me a little bit more about that, Erik?
Yeah, he said, he goes, universal consciousness is he says, like the amalgamation of everything. It is everything. He says, think of it as a super subconscious. The super subconscious.
There's a number of universes. So I think there's little universes, right? But all of them together are like a source. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because he says there's
Okay.
more. There is. He says there's universes within universes, and then there's like an ultimate. He says the big kahuna.
That's crazy. Is that what you would consider source, or that is source? Is the big kahuna just one aspect of source?
He's calling it prime source.
Okay, prime source. Cool.
Mhm. Mhm.
Prime USDA source. Prime rib. Yes, somehow we could take.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Anything else,
And
Erik?
Yeah, he wants to just say, Mom, what you're talking about vibration, but for manifestation, that, and he just wants to add something because he says, some people are listening and saying, like, I don't even feel good enough to even start doing that or paying attention. I'm having a hard time getting out of bed, or I'm having a hard time just feeling faith in anything right now. And he says, and so that's okay. He goes, because you have to start where you're at. He goes, you have to accept where you're at and be okay with that. And he says, so what if you don't feel that you have faith in anything? He says, well, can you start to have faith in yourself? He says, is there somebody else in your life that inspires you that you can have faith in? He says, is there, faith in the universe, faith in source, God, the angels, your guides, a loved one that's here or past? He goes, whomever it is that gives you that sense of peace and inspiration. And he says to me, and this is so true, when I know I use this example almost every time we're on the show, it seems, anymore I do, but it's taught me so much. But when I was diagnosed with cancer and I was in that state of like sheet over my head for 30 days, like I was so depressed and in complete disbelief. And what really changed that for me was my daughter, one of my daughters at the time was 7, and she had come up to me and said, Mom, are you going to die? Or is this it? Like, are you going to die? And I said, no, absolutely not. Like, I've got treatment. Everything's good. We're going to go through this. We're going to look back, and we're all going to be stronger for it. And she was quite happy with that answer. It gave her a lot of peace. And that was the first time that I kind of looked at things and said, wait a minute here. So I've said these words to my daughter, and she has now taken my word, and she's walked away, and it's given her peace, and now she's over playing with her dolls and content. And I thought, why can't I do that for myself? Why can't I do that? And so that was my moment. And I could, because that was my moment right there where I said, okay, I'm going to stop searching on the internet. I'm going to stop panicking. I'm going to do this. And what my inspiration is my children, because at that time I didn't have enough confidence. I was going through a lot of, shame and pain and things that I needed to heal in my life at that time. And so I didn't have faith in myself. And so I did it for my children in saying that no matter what, my kids, no matter what happened to me, my kids were going to see me do my best. And I was doing it for them. So what started out doing it for them turned into so much more, and doing it for me and doing it with my connection to spirit. So Erik's just saying, start with what gives you inspiration. Step into what gives you inspiration and allow those steps to start carrying you forward one step at a time.
That's so important. I mean, to me, my children made me a better person. I remember that I had an epiphany too when Michelle, my second eldest, she must have been, 5 years old. She kept taking the knob off our trash compactor and hiding it. And it was so frustrating because you can't, And so I went in there and said, where is it? I yelled at her. And she looked scared in her eyes. And I was floored. I said, oh, God, this is not good. I cannot do this. So I learned how to be a better parent. I wrote those 3 parenting books. I said, I'm the best version of me possible for my children. They deserve better. So anyway, that was
and Erik's like, that's right. And Erik goes, Mama, look at you now. And look at that, because he says, look at all that you've done.
You weren't born yet, Erik. It was just Christina and Michelle, but looking back, it's like, oh, my God. Oh.
But he says that
good.
He says that has made such a difference because each one of the kids have such a good sense of self. He says that we all have such a good sense of self that was very, he talks about what you had was very important.
So different in so many ways, which is a good indicator that they do have a strong and healthy sense of individualization, personality, self-identity, etc. All right, about symbols. Talk more about symbols. We talked about signs, synchronicity. What about symbols?
Well, Erik says symbols. He says, well, there's a couple ways we can look at that, because there's what he says is collective symbols. So, for example, he says, when we see a dime and we say that's a loved one dropping a note saying hi. When we see a feather, it's from an angel, it's from a loved one. When we see the tree of life, it represents family. The heart represents love. He says there's universal symbols that mean something to us collectively because we've all had experience. We've put focused vibration on those symbols, so they have that meaning. But he says what he wants everybody to really look at is building your own bank of symbols. He says be okay with allowing yourself to connect your own belief to a symbol. So, for example, you might be seeing something repeating in your life, and let's say he says, okay, the rabbit. So you might see the rabbit all the time, and so the rabbit for the collective is fertility and new beginnings. But for you, every time you see the rabbit, you win something, or you get a new opportunity, and it's good luck. Or it means, I don't know why he's saying this, but it means that you have a new date. Somebody's coming along to go out on a date with. He says, no matter what it is, if that means that to you, don't get mixed up saying, but I looked this up on the internet and this means this, but it feels more like this to me. He says, so allow yourself to build your own bank of symbols. And he says, the thing is, when you build a bank of symbols, he says, as you're working with the universe and you're working with spirit, those symbols are going to be what are used as your database to be able to give you information. So he says that subconscious symbol bank is what spirit taps into, because spirit will use what you know as symbols, so that when you see certain things, they know what that means to you. And so it may not mean it to somebody else. So it's very valuable because it's a language that you can use.
Yeah, I see that with a lot of mediums. They have certain symbols. Well, he's showing me this. That to me, that means blah blah blah.
Mhm. Yeah, he says because it's a way to be able to. And he says, and not all spirits work that way. Not all mediums work that way. But he said the other thing is too is he says, well, a spirit will also work on your own experiences. So he says he always shows me the example of a Rolodex. And he says that we go through your Rolodex and we look at your experiences. So when they're trying to get something across specifically in an experience, they might, like, for example, a lot of times if I have a spirit come in and they want to talk to me that they maybe had a collector car in their life or they had an antique car. Well, my father, my family business was a car dealership, and they sold hot rods and old cars and stuff. So they'll show me my father's business, and they'll give me a flash of it. And so when I see that, I know that this person was into cars and they were into old cars. So those type of things, Erik says that you get to know that Rolodex. So he says this is also, when you're working with the universe in this way, he goes, not only for your own life, but you're building your mediumship skills as well. You're building this way of being able to create this language that you can then work off of. So it has a lot of benefit to it.
All right, so how, and I want to ask about numbers, but before that I want to ask, how do spirits work with the universe? I mean, we talked about how we can work with the universe, play with the universe, etc. What about spirits? Spirit guides, etc.
Well, he says it's creative intelligence. So he says everything's vibrational. So in spirit, he says we're not necessarily looking at symbols or giving each other symbols, but we're using the vibration to communicate in spirit, on the side of spirit, and we're also using vibration to communicate with you. So he says on our side of things, it's vibration. So it's like a pool of creation, and everything has a vibration to it. So we are putting ourselves into that vibration, focusing that vibration.
Very cool. All right, so numbers. Now, a lot of people think that mathematics, that's the universal language of the universe. And you can see that, well, I believe that everything is constructed with sacred geometry. Maybe I'm not, maybe that's not true. A lot of it is.
No, that's true. That's true, he says. That's true.
Pardon me?
He says that numbers are creation. He says that numbers, everything boils down to numbers. He says from our incarnation to, he says patterns, the pattern on a leaf, on a flower, everything has numbers matching the chakra systems, matching frequency. He says there's nothing that numbers do not connect to.
Wow, it's amazing. Yeah. The divine ratios and the Fibonacci sequence and all that. It's just, the language of life, of the universe, is all mathematics, geometry.
Yes, and he says that they repeat patterns, and when they repeat, when they come together, he says that there's healing vibration to it. And wow, okay, that makes a lot of sense, because he says, Mom, when you look at the frequency, so a frequency that you dial into for healing, he says when you put certain numbers together, he says they're healing. And he says, and that's what creation is. It's that frequency, high frequency, which is healing frequency. He says it's medicine. It's medicine.
Yeah.
And so when you put numbers together, you're building a frequency. It's medicine.
So that's in part how scalar energy seems to work?
Yes, he says it's energetic medicine.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very cool.
That's so interesting.
It is. Anything else you want to talk about in this subject before we take callers, Erik?
The only thing he says is there's no negative numbers. He says all numbers have positive quality to them. So I don't know if somebody's like afraid. He says he's showing me the number 13. He's like some people stay away from certain numbers, and he says, remember, that's a belief system. He says there's no such thing as negative numbers.
Well, what about negative integers like 0, 1, 2, 3, but also 0, -1, -2, -3?
Yes.
Those are but not negative in the sense that it's bad, quote unquote.
That's right.
What about the I number, the irrational number, the I in mathematics? What is that all about? That has an energy to it too, I guess.
Well, it does, because letters, everything has a value to it, and he calls that one like has something to do with the balance, harmony.
Oh,
has to do with harmony in the universe. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else before we take names and kick butt?
Oh, he's shrugging his shoulders up and down and like rubbing his hands together, and he says, "Nope, let's get at it, Mama."
All right. Okay. Now the first person we have here on the top of the list is 262 area code. Hi there. How you doing?
Hi there. This is Marla from Wisconsin. Hi, Elisa, Michelle, Erik. I love you all.
Hi. Love you.
So my question actually lines very much with what you're saying, and that is I've been doing a lot of connecting with my higher self, but I'm not getting any real guidance on forward movement. So how do I get my life flowing again, but in a way that fits all the changes that I've made?
Okay, hang on here. Okay, so are you feeling stuck? Is that what you're saying? You're just kind of feeling like you're not getting information from your higher self?
Okay, I'm getting information. I channel right, but it's just very vague in general.
Well, first of all, Erik says to have patience because he says, like, this is a successful venture. And he says sometimes when you go through periods where it feels like it's not moving anywhere, it's not growing, is actually a period where you're having some rest. And he says, and so when there's focus on, you know, there needs to be more or I need to do more, he says, then that creates a blockage. He says it's not really a blockage. It's like a frequency that we hold in front of it so that we have resistance. So then it's difficult to move through the resistance. He says relax a little bit, like just relax yourself a little bit. And he also says, so some of what you're asking, he's talking about the quality of what you're asking, because some of it has, he says, a little bit of expectation with it. So I don't know if you have a little doubt or there's some expectation because he says you're actually getting more information than you realize.
And just have faith that it's really real.
Yeah,
maybe that's
he's like part of you is discounting some of the information.
Am I on the right track with the writing or?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. He says you're a success. Yes. Thumbs up.
Okay, as far as like a career move or just for general information?
Yeah, he's dropping coins for you. So there's financial gain for you. Yes. Yeah, he says keep going. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Love you guys.
Love you.
All right. Okay, we got somebody from the 732 area code. Hi there, how you doing?
Hello, I love you all. Thank you so much for taking my call.
Hi. So delighted. Who is this?
This is Melissa from Manchester, and I wanted to know, my family and I, we watched that show, what is it called? Ghost Adventures. And these people go and check out these old homes and stuff, and they say that there's hauntings and ghosts and stuff in them. But when you were channeling people like Adolf Hitler and stuff like that, you know that they go to heaven. But when they go to these places and they're looking for spirits of like children who something really traumatic happened to them. And I don't understand. Can Erik explain how there are still people stuck here when you make your contract and you say, okay, this is my out, and then the universe is going to bring you back to heaven, even if you went in as being something bad. But how are there still spirits stuck here that haven't been brought home yet?
Yes, that's what we do. One of the millions of things we do with the energy repair, protection, and enhancement is have Archangel Metatron guide, or if necessary, force earthbound spirits into the light. And a lot of them get stuck, not necessarily always because they've had a trauma. Sometimes it's because the property they died on or lived in has a lot of bad mojo, a lot of really bad energy tears that let out all these negative entities, all these horrible things. Maybe it's on top of an ancient burial ground. Maybe there's been torture or ceremonial sacrifices. Maybe there's been war, skirmishes between indigenous tribes, between whites and indigenous tribes, and just family feuds, black magical forms, cursed on the land. And then that bad mojo, for some reason, maybe just lowers the vibrational frequency of these spirits so much that they can't find a way into the light. But I'll tell you,
there are angels or guides. Why wouldn't their angels or guides come and get them? I mean, you make the contract, you come down to being a human, and
they have to ask for help, I think. But go ahead,
Erik.
Erik,
he says that this is a good question because he says a lot of people do question this, so it's a good thing to talk about. So he says that to remember that there are many different contracts at play, and sometimes some of these situations do have a contract element to it, but particularly what you're talking about is, he says, when a soul is crossing from the physical body, not all crossings are, sometimes the soul may be afraid to cross because he says, remember, free will is still at play. A soul has a right to deny their crossing. A soul has a right to deny the light and deny going with someone. So an example that he's giving me is he says there are some souls that will, say, leave their body and realize that they still exist. They'll realize that, oh my God, I'm still here, and see that there's somewhere to go, and they're being asked to go, and they may not trust. They may not trust because they think they're going to be judged. And this is still part of that experience to be honored. And so Erik says if they choose not to do that, then they stay. They're still not being punished. And the moment they ask for help, their guides and their angels are there. He says that's one circumstance, but it's really not a one-size-fits-all, because he says when it comes to children, sometimes there are traumatic experiences, but he says a lot of times what we're also seeing is, and he goes in, and remember, he says that we're multidimensional. And so at sometimes it's not the full soul of the child. He says sometimes, for example, the fear of that child might be what's being held back. And so that's what's being communicated with. And so because we exist in more than one place, that soul can still be on the other side as well and have part of it. He says this is where we call it a fractal. But there are souls that don't cross. There are some that are children that don't cross, and that might be part of their experience, because Erik says, remember this, there are many, many living on earth right now that cross earthbound spirits and that work in many different levels of the light. And it's all important work. And he says, yes, he says, we all have the ability to cross over. All of our guides and our angels are there, but we also have, our soul honors the reason why we came or what our contract was. So he says a lot of these times we're talking about this, there's individual experiences where there is something at play. And he says, and think about this, there's a lot of learning, because he goes, at the end of the day, everything that we experience is learning. And one more thing he wants to add is when you're watching that show, sometimes the energies that are being communicated with are not necessarily earthbound spirits. Some of them are interdimensional energies as well. And some of them are also pools of negative energy that's taken on the form of something darker. So there's a lot of fear come together, and it comes together as an entity. So they're working in a completely different area. But he says, he's not saying this because he says a lot of people are listening to this going, oh, that's kind of scary. He says it's not scary. It's really not. He goes, it sounds more complicated than it is. But you have to remember, just like human beings, and we all have these different experiences here on earth, he says even within our souls and our crossings, we have different experiences as well.
That's true. All right, well,
thank you so much for that wonderful message. Bless you
You're
all.
You're welcome. Thank you. You too.
Very comforting. Nobody wants a child to be stuck, Oh, okay.
No.
561 area code. Hi there. How you doing?
Hello, ladies.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
This is Gigi. Hello, Erik. Hello, Elisa. Hello, Michelle.
Hi.
Hello, sweetheart.
Oh, I'm on my way to Florida on the weekend. I'm leaving Friday, going back to Florida after 3 years of being in Canada. I know. It's my birthday. Talk about a gift.
That's wonderful.
I know. I'm so excited. I talk to Erik all the time because you told me that I would be going back in a year, and then it was 3 months or something, and anyway, it's happening. And I just want to ask, when I get back, I have to renew my driver license. Is it going to happen easily, or do I have to have surgery with my eyes?
Erik's saying it's not going to happen easily. He is saying that. He says it's not going to be easy. You may have to have something done with your eyes, but he's just saying, he goes, it's not going to come right away. It's not going to be an easy thing.
But do you have cataracts? What do you have? Cataracts?
Cataracts and glaucoma.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cataracts.
Mm-hmm.
I had both of my cataracts, my lens replaced, and it's awesome. It's so easy. Outpatient, no pay. It's amazing. And mine was covered by Medicare, I think. Or maybe it was But,
is there another issue than the cataracts?
Say that again?
Is there another issue than the cataracts? If this is all that needs to be removed, or would there be something else, another issue?
You said you have glaucoma as well? Because it looks like there might be something else other than the cataracts that has to be looked at. It has to be dealt with.
Yeah.
But he says, he wants you to hear this though. He says, know that anything that's taken away will be replaced by something else better. He wants you to hold that thought.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right,
okay.
Well, let us know. Postcard from Florida, man.
Good luck. Enjoy
thank
the
you
sunshine.
so much.
Good luck,
excuse me?
Oh, she has been wanting to move for so long. Thanks, Gigi.
Yes. That's awesome.
Goodness.
I'm so happy for her.
Here? Me too. All right, we have somebody from it's a long number. So maybe
from the international. Skype. Hello.
Hi there, how you doing?
I'm okay. This is Raf. I'm calling from the UK. Not originally from the
Raf.
UK, though. I just have a message for the person. I don't know if she's still listening, but the person that called before, the lady before, she should definitely check out the book called Multidimensional Man or Vistas of Infinity by Jürgen Ziva, because that man uses out-of-body experiences to explore the different dimensions around Earth, and it's absolutely fascinating.
Cool.
Absolutely fascinating.
Cool.
Is there anything that you guys are talking about?
On the line.
Sorry, say again.
She's on the line.
Is there anything that you guys are talking about the numbers? Because for me, and the connection, because for me, naturally, this is never something I researched. For me, I know that when I'm in tune with myself, when I look at the clock, the numbers are the same. So, for example, 16, 16, 15, 15. For me, I always knew it's like a probability thing that's completely impossible. It happens a lot. Also, for example, if it's one number after 16, 17, I know that it's because I'm missing something or I'm late for something that I should have done before. It's very interesting that you mentioned that. So my question is, I've been meditating a lot. So when I meditate for longer periods of time, like 1 hour straight, 2 hours a day, I end up feeling like all the things that I was trying before. So I was trying to be a certain way. I was trying to deal with things, trying to change myself. I feel like it all kind of goes out the window. And the only thing that makes sense is to be myself. And although I'm kind of a dickhead sometimes, and I'm a nice person other times, I feel like being who I am sort of is the way to go, and things sort of fix themselves to experience. Does this make any sense? And I want to ask Erik if I'm being sucked into an ego loop or something like that, because I feel like it makes so much sense to just be the way I am, even if it's not perfect. And I feel like experience itself sort of changes me.
Perfect. Everyone is perfect, and you're a whole part of God. You're divine. How can you not be perfect?
I know, but that's something I know intellectually. As myself, I know that maybe I'm mistreating people. I'm not, you know what I mean? Like intellectually, I know I'm perfect, but we always feel like we need to work on things, like be a better person, be more altruistic, etc. But at this point,
Erik,
with the meditation that I'm doing, I feel like I just, by being who I am is just the way to go. I don't need to fix anything in the literal sense. I don't even need to put an effort. It's just the experience itself.
Yes. Erik's just like, he says, bravo, Raf. He says bravo, because here's the thing. He says, when you're pushing and you're pushing to meditate and to do this and to do that, and it doesn't feel like it's you, but you feel in alignment being you, which is what everybody should be, is be themselves. It's letting go of the idea of what we need to do to be something, but to organically be ourselves. And he says that's being present with yourself. And he says the discipline is how do I be my most authentic self? And what does my most authentic self mean? What is that? What is it that I feel like in this moment? Who am I in this moment? What are my desires in this moment? He says that is
but sometimes I'm a horrible. I mean, not I would say horrible, but sometimes I'm just unpleasant to others, or I can see the thoughts. You see, I can see the thoughts like how ego based they are, and I feel like I just need to roll with it. I'm not even gonna change it, and this feels kind of odd because we're so.
He says when it comes to other people, he goes, this is part of discipline and discernment too, because he says you're going to see things in yourself that you're going to feel certain ways about things that other people do and say. And he goes, and this is allowing other people to be exactly as they are at the same time that you allow yourself to be as you are. Wow, and not feeling the need to speak on that. He says that's the path of least resistance. It's when we try to control everything for ourselves and for other people to have people believe in what we have. He says complete non-resistance is allowing others to be themselves for where they're at and allowing you to be yourself for where you're at. That, he says, my friend, will do you well.
And I think that
thank you so much.
One of the main lessons from Erik is it's very important to be emotionally honest with others and emotionally honest with ourselves. And there's nothing bad about that. I mean, it's you don't need to insult people and call them names, but to be honest, fine. I mean, you have to have faith in people to be able to take in that honesty and see it for what it is. And you be you and own it, and they can be them and own it too. All right, thank you, Rob.
That's right.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rob.
Okay, let's see here. Got somebody from the 212 area code. Hi there, how you doing?
Oh, hi. This is Bryn from New York City. How's everybody?
Bryn, the artist. Hi.
Hello, Bryn.
Hi there.
Hello.
It's been a difficult day for me. Past 2 days. Very. I go out to go for a walk, and I feel well, that's going to help, and then I don't feel that good at all. And I'm just, what's going on? It's just maybe I'm in a waiting period or something, or just need some commentary because I feel like I've got off the wrong side of the bed today. It's a very difficult day.
Well, Erik just said, sometimes we do get up, and so he says, what comes up must come down, because he says, the flow of life is not always going to be surfing the euphoric wave. He says the flow of life, especially, he says, you're creating new balance for yourself. He says that you're in this state right now where he says you're coming upon many changes. And he also says, there's other things, too, that are at play, because he says there's a bit of a sense of loneliness that you've been feeling within yourself as well. But he says you're finding balance. And he's saying something to you that's very similar that he just said to Raph, which is, he said, what if you allow yourself to feel that instead of being in resistance of it? What if you allow yourself to...
I just kind of go with it, but it's, it just is what it is. I don't like it because it's almost like I cannot function. I get non-functional. It seems like, I don't know.
Okay, well, he needs some practical advice, maybe. Erik, can you give him some practical steps?
Well, he just said, he goes, first of all, he says, doing anything to balance yourself, any energy work, and you being an energy healer, he says, whatever is going on around you energetically always affects you the most. You're very sensitive. And so he says by getting fresh air, by doing whatever makes you comfortable, he says connecting with artwork, he says you might have to push yourself just a little bit to do something that gives you a sense of joy. Because he says, remember, you always have a choice whether you want to fall into like a deeper space, or whether you want to offer yourself some comfort or use some of the tools that you have. He says, reach into your toolbox of your energy work and what can you do for yourself that gives you a sense of comfort. But he just wants to tell you that he says, trust, Bryn, because this is a period of rebalance, and a period of rebalance is like a quiet time. He goes, what if you actually need rest? What if you actually need a chance to just quieten down? Because he says you did a peak and then you did a drop. And he says, and it's okay to take some time where you just rest. He says it won't last. It won't last. You have to trust yourself in this. He says, trust the process that you're in.
You know what I'd rather have is something that's sort of in the middle ground where I don't have to go so up that I go so way down. It's like the middle road, you know. It's that middle line. That's what I'm looking for, some continuity where, you know, I don't get overexcited, but I don't get underexcited. I just get real, you know. You know what I mean?
And you know, no, it makes sense, but it takes time to do that. He says, you know, you've been working very hard on yourself, but he also says you are very hard on yourself.
Yeah, that's true.
So, and he says, you know, you go to worry, and he says, like, this is an opportunity for you to really get into the space of choosing your thoughts and choosing to give yourself something, to give yourself a sense of peace where you're at, and trust the process that you're in and that process of what you feel right now. So he goes, it doesn't feel like way up high and you might be feeling low, but he goes, there's importance to being able to walk through that instead of resisting it. Walk through it, because he says it's not going to stay. You're working on balancing yourself out.
Right.
Sometimes, for me, when I get like that, doing something of service really brings my energetic vibration up. Like,
well, that's what I've wanted to do. I've wanted to do that, but the thing is, I'm not vaccinated, and I go to sign up for volunteer work, and they want vaccinated people. I wanted to do that. Now, what I am doing is I am doing free energy healings on people because I need the practice, and so that's kind of volunteer work. But I've been wanting to do I used to do some volunteer work at a soup kitchen, and I wanted to do that again, but they all asked for this vaccination thing, and so. Well, I won't get into that issue, but that's.
What about adopting a special needs pet or something like that? I mean, anyway, there are all sorts of opportunities.
Yeah, I know.
All right.
That's true.
Yeah. All right. Well, Brent,
hang in there, Brent.
Okay.
Hang in.
I will.
Yeah.
All right. 805. Sometimes we're in a quiet period. It makes us feel lonely, but it's not necessarily true lonely. All right. 805. Erik, how are you doing?
Hi, this is Donna. I'm in California. How are you? First time talking to you. Hi. I wanted to know if you could ask Erik if I'm ever going to get married. I've never been married, and I'm older now, but I sure would like the companionship and the special bond with someone, and I wanted to know if Erik can see.
Well, Erik says yes. So did you have a change, or are you about to have a change in your place of living or job, or is there some kind of change in your life right now?
Well, the fellow I look after, a blind man, like 4 days a week, 3 hours a day.
Oh, yeah.
And he's on his way out.
Okay.
Very.
Okay, because what Erik says that you're going to have a change. So there's going to be a change of where you're, physically, where you're going to be physically.
Okay.
And he says, and this is leading you to your road of happiness. And he says that this is also somebody that has something very similar in service like you, because you're very service-oriented, like for other people. That's the type of vibration and heart you have. So he says that, yes, you're going to meet somebody. He also says, he says that you have a standard. You have a standard. Like there's like a type of person that you want, or an idea of what you want. And he says, be open, because this person may not seem like your ultimate, but he says, be open. He says, like, more behind the door.
Okay,
that's good.
Well, how will Donna meet this special someone? Will it be online, like silversingles.com, or just through lunch?
It feels through somebody. It has something to do with the change that she's going to be making, and it feels through somebody, and it has something to do with her line of work.
Awesome.
Does she see me moving with my sister? My sister lives about an hour and a half here. My sister said I could come there and live with her, but see, I'm in a predicament because my neighbor is 87 and he has nobody. So I do his food shopping, his laundry. I cook for him occasionally. I just volunteer. And so I think it would be hard for him without me. But I have to think of myself too, though. But or do you see me? Is it a good idea to move sisters?
Resources, Meals on Wheels, social service.
I do see that. And what Erik is saying is that there's things that happen that are beyond our control or beyond our line of sight that we can't see quite yet. That'll help align the circumstances, because he's saying that, yes, you are going to move. You are going to physically move. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Could you ask him if he sees me moving to my sister's, or maybe with the man that's going to come into my life? Would I move with him, or would it be my sister's?
He is saying female. What's your sister's first name?
Deborah.
Not moving in with a male right away. He's like, you're gonna meet before you move in. Like you're gonna move first and meet through that move, like through whatever you're doing, and it has to do with your work.
Oh.
Whatever you do for work.
Promise, Donna, invite us to the wedding, baby.
Yeah.
All right, so guys, I think we'll end off here. I don't want to run into the next show. Thank you, Erik, my love. Thank you, Michelle Gray at thehealinghh-art.com, which will be in the description box. You guys be sure to share this audio YouTube, and subscribe and hit the notification bell. We love you, and I love you, Erik. I love you, Michelle. I love you, everyone.
Love you. Erik says, love you, Mama. I love everybody. Love you too, Lisa. Have a great night, everyone.
Bye.